Hello and welcome to the Simplify webinar series. I'm David McBee, Director of Training. And this month I'm here with Simplify's CEO, Frost Prelo. And we're going to talk about OTT CTV. Good morning, Frost.
Hey, good morning, David. Happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, Frost, listen, everyone is talking about OTT CTV. Everyone I know is a cord cutter or a cord stacker, or the younger group are cord nevers. And you can't read the news without 12 articles talking about the growth of streaming television. So I don't think we need to convince people that there's a trend here. Would you agree with that?
I agree. I think people know what's going on. I actually cut the cord myself about a year ago. I looked around, our kids had left home, and I said, "Wow, we've got like 5 cable boxes in our house that we're all paying for." That made no sense. So we're amongst the group of not nevers or stackers. I think we must just be cutters at this point.
Well, let me ask you this. Consumers seem to get it. People are definitely watching TV in a new way. But what about advertisers? So I found some research by SpotX that predicts that OTT CTV ad spending will hit over $6 billion this year. Now, that certainly implies that linear TV advertisers are making the transition to digital, but are they just following the eyeballs, or do you think there are other advantages to making that switch?
Oh, you have different advertisers going for different reasons here. I mean, I think the big thing, of course, that everyone knows happened is during the pandemic, the number of people watching and the hours they spent watching streaming TV just accelerated and multiplied. So yeah, you have some following the eyeballs from that perspective. But I think another interesting thing that happened is during the pandemic, just the awareness of advertisers spiked. So all of a sudden, they were watching streaming, their kids were watching streaming, all their friends were talking about streaming. And so I think that also drove just these advertisers saying, "Hey, this is a media type that I need to be on." And so that I think that happened also. We're seeing, from just following the eyeballs, it's probably more the linear TV buyers who are thinking about following the eyeballs because they're seeing declining reach in the linear TV they buy on. So they need to replace that reach, and CTV's an obvious way to do that. But we also see a ton of buyers coming over with a digital buying background, and where they're just saying, "Hey, here's a way I can get the full impact of TV, but with all the benefits I've had with digital over the years."
Perfect. So what would you say are some of those advantages that OTT CTV has over linear that the advertisers are now embracing?
Well, it's really all, as I said, it's the you get the full impact of non-skippable ads on a full length episode. And often CTV can be on any size screen, but often our advertisers choose, hey, they want to be on the big screen that's presumably on the wall of the living room. But so you get that. But in addition, is they're seeing the ability to target audiences much more precisely that can be done with linear TV. Really, it's all the ability to target audiences that they're used to on digital that we're bringing over to CTV.
So let's assume someone watching this webinar isn't a digital buyer. They have bought linear their whole lives. What are some of the ways that Simplify can create this targeted audience?
Well, one of the ways we've seen just been a really great fit, and especially for linear buyers who've been interested, is linear buyers tend to be accustomed to buying based on household demographics. And so one of the real popular things that we've seen is linear buyers coming over, and in our platform, they're able to target households based on demographics. But instead of having the 10 buckets of demographics, age, gender, maybe a few others, they're able to go on our platform or have our team select for each household from 600 demographics they can choose from. So not only all the age, income, et cetera, but purchase history, whether they have cars coming off leases, whether they have a pool in the backyard, and they can do these full Boolean joins. So I just want people with a household income of 150,000 in a car coming off lease in the next 3 months, and who where the households are within a 20-mile radius of my dealership. And so they're able to target in on these audiences in a way that's just much more precise than they've been able to do with linear TV. But in addition to that household, it's really all the digital targeting that the digital advertisers have been used to. So targeting people based on their search history, you know, to stick with the auto analogy, whether they've searched on, you know, red Corvette or something, or all the behavioral data based on visiting various sites, based on physical visits, whether advertisers love targeting users who have visited a competitor's auto dealer, or a competitor's fast food restaurant, or a competitor's retailer. One of the things we've seen that's been super effective is site retargeting. So for today, for instance, if you go to the Simplify site, you very well may see a Simplify TV ad, right? Starring none other than the voice of one David McBee on it. So that's been super powerful on that side. And then, of course, there's all the third-party data, like purchase history data, that they can target with as well. So it's just a whole, you know, both data that mimics, but just is better than the linear TV targeting, but also all the targeting that digital advertisers are used to as well.
Yeah, Frost, I have to tell you just a quick story. The other day I was watching Ink Masters on the Paramount Network, and my wife and I were kind of falling asleep as we were watching the show. And all of a sudden I heard my own voice come on the TV in our bedroom, and we both kind of shot up like, how did that happen? It was quite jarring, but I don't think it has to be your own voice to have that kind of an impact. I think people are really excited when they see a TV commercial that is so targeted based on a website that they visited earlier that day. I think that's very, very cool.
Yeah, it's kind of, you know, I think of it as kind of the democratization of TV advertising. You think about Simplify, it would make no sense for Simplify to advertise on TV typically, because I'd have to buy, you know, broad swaths of people watching Shark Week or something like that. And who knows whether those folks would be interested in programmatic advertising or agency management software. But here, where we can target people who visited our site, then all of a sudden that opens up TV advertising to B2B, to smaller businesses who just want to target within certain miles of their store and not all the way across the whole DMA. So it really opens up TV advertising to a whole new group of advertisers, I think, which is fascinating.
So the targeting is great. Advertisers must like that they can show their ads to people who are of a certain demographic, as you just described, or in the market to buy from them based on their internet activity. But I want to talk about attribution. So how can an advertiser be confident in their investment in OTT CTV with Simplify?
Well, that's a great question. And that's a big, one of the big attractants of advertisers to CTV over TV. I often say, hey, what we see is advertisers come to CTV for the targeting, but then they stay for the attribution when they can see when they see what kind of measurement they can get and how precisely they can measure ROI or ROAS on their ad spend. And so it really just any type of attribution we see on digital, we can also apply to CTV. And so it's really revolutionary for TV advertisers to be able to say, hey, I showed this TV or this TV ad, and then someone from that household went to my ad site and bought my product or signed up for a test drive or signed up for a lead form or what have you. So they can very closely dig in and calculate the cost per sale or the cost per lead or whatever the KPI that they're measuring. The other interesting thing that people love is a foot traffic attribution. So I've showed it to TV. Advertiser can show ads to particular households and then measure down to the ZIP+4 level which of those households actually visited their store, whether that was an auto dealership, a fast food restaurant, or their retail store, and how that visitation rate compared to the households in the same demographic that didn't visit. And so they can see actual foot traffic lift, which we provide in our platform, and really gives them a really good idea, not only on how to measure, but how to optimize the campaign and drive better performance, and also a really good understanding of just what sort of households are where their advertising is most effective with.
I absolutely love that, Frost. I think that these are metrics that digital display advertisers, have been kind of used to for years. Are non-TV advertisers, people who have never advertised on television before, now embracing OTT CTV?
Yeah, I think really in two buckets here. One, you have those digital advertisers that we talk to, and all of a sudden they say, "Wow, I'm used to placing banners or small or ads on laptops and mobile phones, et cetera, and all of a sudden I can do that same digital advertising or that same targeting on large, very impactful TV ads." So you have that group coming over. And then the other piece again is the ability for people where it just didn't make sense. I use Simplify as an example, but think about a local restaurant or what have you that is in West Fort Worth, and the only way he could buy that advertisers could buy ads was to buy an entire DMA before, but they know really their customer base is within a 5-mile radius or a 10-mile radius. So this ability to target both very precise demographics and very precise locations really opens up TV advertising to a whole host of new advertisers. And that doesn't have to be like a single location. What we're seeing a lot of is like franchises, and they're saying, well, really to be more effective, I don't want to target across a whole DMA or a whole city or a whole portion of a city. I just want to target because I know if I'm a grocery store, the people are just going to come from 5 or 7 miles within my store. I just want to target those households, and they'll find that to be the most impactful.
All the wonderful benefits of digital that we've had for so many years now connected to TV. I love that. All right. So I'm going to ask you maybe the hardest question I've got for you. Okay. When an advertiser thinks television, they think linear, they think popularity of the channel or popularity of the show. So what do you say to someone who wants to advertise on OTT CTV and they want to pick or choose a particular channel or show or app just because it's a popular platform?
Well, they can certainly do that, and there's tons of high quality inventory becoming available, or that's available today, and more is becoming all available all the time in CTV. And in fact, we see linear buyers who tend to think that way do that and say, "Hey, I want to give you this inventory list. I only want to be on Discovery Channel and Home and Garden TV or ESPN or what have you." But really, once they get there and they really sort of understand the audience targeting capabilities, we tend to see them sort of move more towards the direction and the targeting the digital buyers have been doing for years, and they're much more attuned to, and that's identifying their audiences and exactly who they want to be, whether those households are of a certain age or have been seen to be buying certain products or have searched on certain things. So identify those audiences and then make sure and then target them on where those audiences are visiting. And so what we see is that in that case, typically these site lists or network lists or shows in this case would be not sort of preset, but let's identify the audience, let's run the campaign, and let's see where those audiences are watching the ads, and let's see on which of those publishers or those networks are the ads being most effective, and then focus in the budgets most on those, more as an optimization once a campaign's running, as opposed to preset determination that I only want to run on these particular networks.
Yeah, and there does seem to be a bit of a misconception that programmatic inventory isn't premium. It really reminds me of how advertisers felt about programmatic display a decade ago. Can you help me debunk this myth for OTT CTV?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things we found over the years is that just about everyone has their own definition of premium. To some people, premium is the type of inventory that delivers the best return. To other people, hey, they want to make sure that they're brand aware and they only want their brand on certain networks or certain types of content. To others, premium is where the audience is. And so, what I think the good news is that there is lots of premium inventory today available on CTV, available through programmatic CTV, and this is really a result again of the pandemic and so much inventory being created by the increased watching of streaming TV. And so people can advertisers can choose whether they want to take an audience first approach, whether they want to take a content first approach, or somewhere in between. And so we have all kinds of channels available: Discovery Channel, Food Channel, ESPN, HGTV, Lifetime TV. We have tons of news channels available if that's where advertisers want to spend. So it's really up to the advertiser to determine kind of the guardrails they want to work in. Our typical thing for performance based advertisers, I think you really want to make sure you're on high quality inventory, but really set those targeting fairly wide. And really be able to see what works. A brand advertiser may say, "Hey, I just want to be on Discovery Channel or what have you," and you can go ahead and deliver out on those particular networks where they think their ads will be most effective.
And speaking of them wanting to be on particular channels, I know that with linear TV buys, an advertiser actually knows when and where their ad will be on. Like they'll know it's going to be on Ellen at 3 p.m., for example. Now, how is that different with a programmatic buy? And what would you say to the advertiser who wants to know exactly when and where their ad will air?
Well, so we have full day parting capabilities in our platform and most programmatic platforms. So if they think, hey, their audience is going to be most receptive to their ad between 1 and 4 in the afternoon, or between 10 and midnight some night, you can absolutely do that. But what we find is typically those preconceptions are not correct. So what we typically recommend is to use day parting as an optimization lever. Don't use it as an initial targeting lever. So let's start off with a campaign that covers the entire day. Let's see where we're getting the best response, and then as we optimize our algorithm, either manually or our algorithms will go in and optimize to, for example, the networks and the audience demographics and the time of day, that's the combinations that are working the best. And that's really how you drive the best performance out of campaigns.
Frost, I get the feeling that people watching this webinar are thinking, yeah, this all sounds great, but does it really work? Are there any Simplify OTT CTV success stories you can share with us?
Oh gosh, we've got lots of them, and that's the beauty of having the attribution, is you can see exactly what they are. I would say, we can share those. Certainly, come to our website or talk to your sales rep, and we'll share those. I mean, I think some of the areas that we see really strong success are in e-commerce. All of a sudden, performance CTV is a thing, and you find e-commerce people who really care about driving online commerce are having great success. We over Easter had a food retailer who was pushing meals that would be eaten at home. It had a ton of success driving purchases on their website. We're also seeing a ton of success driving, especially as the economy opens back up, driving foot traffic to stores. There's a grocery chain that we're working with very closely. They're seeing great success driving using CTV to drive foot traffic to their stores. I think one of the interesting things that we've seen also is just auto dealers really focusing in on their demographics. I alluded to an example earlier, but you think about a Jaguar dealer saying, "Hey, I just want to target households within whatever a 15 or 20 mile radius of my house, but I only want to target those households that have a household income of whatever their number is, $150,000 a year, and only those households within that group that have cars coming off leases in the next 3 months." And so we're seeing this ability to really target in on particular audiences that's paying off. So we've got lots of case studies in lots of areas. So please contact us. And the other one I would just say is political. We're very busy, certainly the political. Now we're seeing some election cycles going again. So political advertisers often know exactly who they want to target. So our household level targeting has been a really strong capability for them.
All right. So let's talk specifically to agencies that are watching this webinar right now. They're starting to add OTT CTV to solutions that they offer their advertisers. But what advice do you have for them on how best to utilize this tactic for their advertisers?
Yeah. So number one, hey, it's changing quickly in this space. It's growing more inventories coming online, better targeting's coming online, better attributions coming online. So educate yourself and really keep up to speed on what CTV is today and what it can do for you. But I think the other interesting thing, if you have a specific advertiser in mind, I mean, one of the things we do that has been very helpful is reach out to us and we'll put together a very specific proposal for your advertiser. And people found that really useful because then they can go back and get feedback. Hey, is this the audience? And really drill down on audiences that the client will want to target. Far more specific than just the general demographics they've done. So really, I think some of these reach out and get a proposal. I think you'd be surprised by the how specific and how targeted TV now can be.
Well, this has been great, Frost. Thank you so much for answering all my questions so thoroughly. Before we wrap things up, can I ask you to maybe take out your crystal ball and tell me what you see in it?
Crystal ball is always a little fuzzy, David. But maybe this isn't too insightful or obvious, or maybe somewhat obvious. But CTV is about 10% of overall TV spending now, right? It's about $8 billion out of $70 billion of US TV spend, and that's going to get to 50% before we know it. We're going to be reading an eMarketer report here in just a couple of years, I think, and it'll be, oh my gosh, CTV is surpassing linear spend. And over time, I love a quote from a gentleman at Roku. I believe it says, over time, all TV will be streamed. And if that's the case, then all TV advertising will also be streamed. And so it's absolutely the way we're headed. We're in early stages, and it'll be fun. It'll be fun to watch it happen.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Frost. It's been a pleasure talking to you today.
Likewise, David. Great talking to you, and we'll talk soon.
And thank you all for joining us. For more information about Simplify's OTT CTV solutions, visit us online at simply.fi or send us an email at hi@simply.fi.